We've been waiting all year long for this, and it's finally here. The question that we've been asking is about to get answered. Who's going to win the big one? Who's taking home the Lombardi Trophy in Super Bowl 58? We got a Super Bowl rematch between the 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs. The last time these two teams met in the Super Bowl, Jimmy Garoppolo outplayed Patrick Mahomes for 3 quarters and 7 minutes until Mahomes and this Chiefs offense just came alive the last 7 minutes in a full quarter, and they ultimately came back and beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl. Are we going to see the Kansas City Chiefs go back-to-back? Is Kyle Shanahan once again going to have a Super Bowl meltdown? Kansas City wasn't even expected by most people to even get to the Super Bowl this year. Their offense struggled for the majority of the season, but then all of a sudden, the playoffs get here and they just flip a switch. And for certain teams like Kansas City, once they get to the playoffs, they're playing a different brand of football than what they are in the regular season. Certain teams just seem to elevate their style of play when the lights are the brightest, when the moments are the biggest. And that's what this Chiefs team has done in this playoff run. Mahomes is playing at a level that we've never seen him play at. And I know it's crazy to say that because there's been so many seasons that Patrick Mahomes has put on display that have been better statistically than what we've seen out of him this year. But against the Buffalo Bills, he was completely flawless. Against the Baltimore Ravens, he was damn near flawless. Yeah, the Ravens defense definitely gave that Chiefs offense a challenge, but that's the toughest defense that the Chiefs are going to face all year long, because you look at this 49ers defense, and yeah, they came alive in the second half against the Detroit Lions, but we can't forget that they were down 24-7 at halftime. This is still a 49ers defense that they don't have a great run defense, and they don't really have a great secondary. When you can protect your quarterback against this 49ers pass rush, and you can make sure that Nick Bosa, Chase Young, and Arik Armstead don't wreck the game, this defense can get had in the passing game. And we've seen Patrick Mahomes make no mistakes with the football. He's being really smart when it comes to picking his spots, when to be aggressive, when to take what the defense gives him. And he's been more of a willing runner during this Super Bowl or postseason run than what we've seen him look like in years past. So this is a Super Bowl that is going to go either way. The 49ers on paper look like the better team, but you can't say the 49ers are going to win this game all because they're more talented on paper, because the best teams that have won the Super Bowl in the past haven't always been able to play up to it. You see, the best teams that win the Super Bowl don't just win it because they have stacked rosters. It's also because they have just as good coaching. The Patriots teams that won their last 3 Super Bowls with the Tom Brady, Belichick era down there in New England weren't all that talented. They were good defensively, but they weren't stout offensively. You know, this was the same Patriots dynasty or franchise that lost to the New York Giants, some of the NFL's biggest underdog stories, when they had Randy Moss in his prime and Wes Welker in his prime and Tom Brady in his prime and still lost. So the best team doesn't always win in the Super Bowl necessarily. Kansas City, they haven't won all because they've been better than everybody else that they played. They've won because, for one, they got outstanding defense, and 2, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Travis Kelce, Isaiah Pacheco, Rashee Rice have all been consistent for them on offense. Anytime they need a big play on offense, they go to one of those 3 guys. And it's worked out for them. And they've showed that with good coaching and being disciplined and being able to elevate their level of play in the big moments, that you can't count them out. And it's crazy how the point spread for this game just changed in front of my eyes. Before I started recording this, the 49ers were a 2.5-point favorite. Now they've only dropped down to a 1.5-point favorite. You see, talent isn't the reason why the 49ers can be viewed as the favorite in this game. Because Kansas City, the last 3 teams that they just beat to get to this point, have all been perceived to be more talented than them. The Dolphins had a better team on paper, we thought. The Bills had a better team on paper, we thought. And the Baltimore Ravens, we thought were going to be the front runners to win it all. And they were able to upset them on the road when Baltimore plays their best football on the road at home. So when you go on the road to Baltimore, more times than not, you're about to get embarrassed. And this is the same Baltimore team that embarrassed the 49ers on Christmas. You can't judge Kansas City from the team that they were in the regular season. You have to judge them for the team that they are right now, when they're a better version of themselves than what they were when we saw them in the regular season. The 49ers, offensively, they have everything that they need to have success against Kansas City's defense. My only question is Brock Purdy finally going to put all of the doubters, all of the naysayers to bed? Because this is the game that is going to define Brock Purdy's legacy for the foreseeable future. If Brock Purdy wins the Super Bowl, the whole narrative about him is going to completely change. Yeah, people still may say that he was carried by the talent around him, but people are going to show him way more respect than what they did Jimmy Garoppolo. You remember the last Super Bowl that these two teams played, when Jimmy Garoppolo missed that big throw to Emmanuel Sanders that could have potentially put the game on ice for San Francisco? That throw is what defined Jimmy Garoppolo for the rest of his time. He was the starting quarterback for San Francisco. Everybody from that point forward looked at him as a really good game manager, a really good quarterback, but not good enough to elevate your team. If Brock Purdy has the same moment in this game, people are going to look at Brock Purdy for what Cam Newton feels he is, a game manager. But if Brock Purdy is able to step up in the big moments and carry this team to a win, like how he has the last 2 weeks against the Green Bay Packers in the divisional round and the Detroit Lions in the NFC Championship when they were down 24-7 and a half, then the whole narrative about Brock Purdy is going to be completely different. People are now going to regard this man as not only a great quarterback, but a true franchise-changing quarterback who the 49ers were blessed to get after they had made one of the biggest draft mistakes of all time, giving up all that capital to get Trey Lance, who isn't even on the team anymore. Brock Purdy, what he does in this game is going to define what the narrative is going to be for his career for the foreseeable future, until he can get to this game again and potentially win it if he doesn't get it done in this go around. And think about what's on the line for Kansas City. This could be the third Super Bowl of the Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Andy Reid era, which will put them, without a doubt, in that dynasty conversation. Not only would it put them in a conversation with the New England Patriots, with Brady and Belichick, but they'll also be in a conversation with those MJ, Michael Jordan-led Chicago Bulls teams, with the NBA Finals during the 90s when they three-peated twice. Or the New England Patriots, when they had success their first go around in the early 2000s with the Brady Belichick era, or even the Golden State Warriors with the dynasty that they had with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, when both of those two guys were in their prime. And then when they got Kevin Durant, Kansas City has the opportunity to enrich themselves in sports history, not just in NFL history, cementing themselves as a dynasty, but cementing themselves as an all-time great dynasty in sports. Patrick Mahomes could solidify himself as one of the greatest players to ever play the game of football with the win here. And I'm not talking about as a quarterback. I'm talking about top 10 player of all time in league history. A Super Bowl win would do it for him. Because think about it, he already has 2. Imagine him having 3 and he's not even 30. And then if he could get 3 more, which he definitely has a possibility to do, he could become the greatest player of all time. There's a lot of things on the line when it comes to legacy for both of these two teams. Hell, think about Kyle Shanahan. The last couple of times he's made it to the Super Bowl as the head coach or offensive coordinator, they've come close to victory, but they fell apart in the fourth quarter. Kyle Shanahan is one of the greatest offensive minds in recent history. And with the Super Bowl win here, he could solidify himself as the same level of what a head coach is, like a guy like Andy Reid and Sean McVay are. Sean McVay and Andy Reid are held in historical regard. And Kyle Shanahan deserves to be in that conversation. He just doesn't have the Super Bowl to get there. He's been to numerous conference championship games. He went to the Super Bowl when he was the OC for Atlanta, and he lost that game mainly due to his play calling. Are the 49ers going to put emphasis on running the hell out of Chris McCaffrey? Are they going to make sure that they do what got them there or what got them in this game? There are way too many times that I've seen Kyle Shanahan in these types of Super Bowl matchups, just when the game is on the line in the full quarter, the play calling just absolutely look terrible. This is a big game for both of these two teams when it comes to legacy-wise. Kansas City wants to cement themselves as a dynasty in sports, and the San Francisco 49ers want to try to recapture that championship glory that they haven't had since the Steve Young and Joe Montana days. And Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan have to solidify themselves as the two top guys, or two of the top guys at the respective positions. Kyle Shanahan could solidify himself as a top 3 coach in the league, and Brock Purdy could solidify himself as a top 5, top 7 quarterback in the NFL right now. Brock Purdy was to have an all-time great Super Bowl performance in this matchup, and he wins Super Bowl MVP, then how could you call him a game manager? Even if Brock Purdy wins this Super Bowl and for the rest of his career, he just reverts to being average, above average, he would be viewed in a way different regard than what he would be without a Super Bowl. Think about how people talk about Joe Flacco or Eli Manning. Joe Flacco wasn't perceived to be an elite quarterback in most people's eyes, and Eli Manning only had, 3-4 seasons out of his multi-year, decade-long career where he was a top 10 quarterback. What separated Eli Manning and Joe Flacco is that in these kinds of games, you knew that you were always going to get their best. And that's what we got to see out of Brock Purdy. For all of the Brock Purdy stands who get tired of guys like Ryan Clark and Cam Newton trying to undermine his success because of where he was drafted, this is the game. This is the moment for Brock Purdy to show everybody why he truly is a unicorn. You just don't draft a quarterback like Brock Purdy, the final pick of the draft, and it just be, he's only in this spot because he's carried by the team around him, without having something different about you. You got to remember, last year, when we first heard about this guy against the Miami Dolphins, well, not last year, but the season before last, he was the 4th-string quarterback to start the season. He had no time, no practice, no chemistry with the first-team offense, and yet he came in that game against the Miami Dolphins, and he's been one of the most dominant quarterbacks in the league statistically. He's had one of the best win-loss records since he has taken over the reins as QB1 in San Francisco. So a win here would definitely change how many people view Brock Purdy. And if he wins a Super Bowl and balls out, hell, maybe people would start to believe that he's the second coming of, Tom Edward Brady or Tom Patrick Brady, whatever his middle name is. There's already people like myself who kind of want to say he could be in a little bit of that Brady range, because you don't find a guy this good every day, the last pick of the draft. The last pick of the draft is called Mr. Relevant for a reason. It's a meme. Nobody takes it seriously. Nobody expects anything out of a guy who's the last pick of the draft. Hell, they have a parade for it because it's such a meme. Nobody takes it seriously, but Brock Purdy winning this Super Bowl could change a lot, not just for how people view game managers, but for how the whole entire league views the quarterback position. You got people now in the NFL who believe that you need a superstar quarterback to be able to win a championship. You need to have a guy who has the arm strength of a Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes and the athleticism as a Lamar, all coupled in one. And that's why we've had these all-time big busts like Zach Wilson or Trey Lance. Guys trying to find that next Patrick Mahomes, that next Lamar Jackson, and they end up whiffing that quarterback because those quarterbacks just don't have the ability to play at a high level in the NFL. You went with Brock Purdy. You look at a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo or a guy like a Kirk Cousins or Dak Prescott, and you say, okay, if the 49ers can win with Brock Purdy, why the fuck can't we win with you? You're like a good above average quarterback. You're like a top 10, top 12 quarterback. You're not the most talented, but if Brock Purdy can win not being the most talented, why can't you? So Brock Purdy can win. You're now start to hear people talking about how maybe you don't need to have a superstar quarterback to win. All you need is a good enough quarterback with a great team around them to be successful. So these are my early thoughts on Super Bowl 58. Let me know your early thoughts on this game down in the comment section down below.